Good afternoon. It's David Perlmutter from Quantum Listing, and I am here today with Gordon Platt, CEO and founder of Gotham Media. And
Hello.
welcome, Gordon.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We're glad you're here. And you actually are here, sitting right next to me in the office.
We're actually together.
Yeah. And for those who don't know me or Gordon, um, he sits two offices away from me. So
it was a long trek, but I made
how was
it.
traffic there, Gordon?
It was surprisingly light.
Oh, good. Glad to hear it. So, our topic today is marketing tips for real estate success. But before we get to that, Gordon, why don't you tell our listeners and viewers a little bit about yourself and your background?
Okay. Well, my company is a marketing and content production company, and I came to it through a slightly circuitous route. I was seems like I started off life as a lawyer and quickly left that to become a television producer at ABC News and was there for quite a number of years and then started my own production company. And that company ultimately morphed into a uh, events company, basically, events and conference company. And we did B2B events for a variety of different industries, mostly around technology and media. And over time, a number of sponsors of the events started asking if there were other things that we could do to help heighten their credibility and build their businesses. So we got into the marketing game and advertising. And so brings us to today. So really half the company is devoted to producing conferences and events, and the other half is more traditional digital agency. But it's very interesting, and I sort of, in some ways, treat the conference part as a laboratory because in promoting our own events, we use a lot of the different marketing techniques and tests that we'll talk about in the next hour.
I was going to make that point, but you beat me to it. So, great minds, as they say.
Exactly.
So, what is marketing, first of all?
Well, marketing is basically getting customers, basically telling people about your services or products that you're providing and enticing them to hire you, hire your company, buy your products. And it's important to note the difference between marketing and PR, because I think some people get them confused sometimes. PR is basically public relations, and that's arranging for the media coverage of your company. So that's basically getting other people to write about you. And marketing is more about the direct process of getting people to hire you. But I would say these days, especially with the growth of digital media technologies, they're really kind of growing together because it's less important these days to get other people to write about you because as we're doing this quantum listing podcast, you can produce the content yourself. So if people aren't writing about you, or it's not even important that they do it necessarily, you can write about yourself.
And I've heard it said that if your marketing is good, you don't need to have a sales department.
Um, well, there's a overlap between the two, but I think your marketing gets people to your sales funnel. So if you look at marketing and sales as a funnel, marketing is the process by which you get people to get into the top of that funnel by reaching out in different ways, trying different techniques. But and if they do sign up that way or hire you that way, that's great. But often what has to happen is that you need to, as you go down the funnel, you need to have a sales team really there to close the deal, to talk to potential clients one-on-one, if that's the type of business that you have, and really to talk directly about what your business can do for them personally. So in a lot of businesses, the marketers lead the prospective customers to the marketing team, and then the marketing team takes over. Unless you're talking about some really high margin products that you just need to close a couple of deals a year. Say it's really high end stuff that you're talking about, in which case the marketing and sales would overlap. But if you're talking a large quantity of leads, marketers are generating all the leads, and then they go into the funnel, and then your sales team converts them into sales.
Got it. All right. So, if anybody, I just want to say that if anybody has questions along the way, you feel free to unmute yourself and ask, or put it in the chat, because we love getting input and interacting with you, our viewers and listeners. So please feel free to take advantage of that. So, all right. Well, thank you for that sort of bird's eye view of marketing and sales. Uh, but we're in the real estate business here, and we don't have time to mess around. We got to make deals. So, how can marketing help your average broker like me make some deals?
Well, I think the important thing to think about is that when you put yourself in the shoes of a consumer, and in this case, the consumer is someone who wants to acquire or lease some property, but think about yourself in a position where you're buying something or looking to hire a provider. Often you look at it as a commodity, whatever it is. So you'll look for the cheapest price or the most convenient one, and one is the same as the other. And if you're buying some raw retail space, maybe it doesn't matter whether I get it from David or I get it from the guy down the street. Who's going to cut me the better deal? So in not just real estate, but I would say in all industries, really the challenge is to distinguish yourselves from the competition and really show that that you are not a commodity, that you personally add value to what the prospective customer is looking for and how you do it. And so you need to create that difference, or not, it's there, but you need to think really about it and how you express it. And then once you've figured out your strategy about what it is that you're going to express, you need to figure out the channels by which you're going to make this known in the marketplace. It's not just enough to come up and say, I've got a great strategy, I add a ton of value, and then just go tell your friends about it, because your friends are already going to come to you. But how to tell those people about it who don't know you, and how are you going to reach those people most cost effectively and efficiently?
So, do you recommend for us real estate folks online marketing, offline marketing? How should we go about our marketing?
Well, I think you have to do everything, basically. And I'd say that to pretty much all businesses. And you have to figure out what works. But once you get into, I would say the mistake that people make about marketing or advertising is that they think it's optional, that they do it when they have time to do it, but then they get busy and they say, well, I'm so busy now, I don't have time to deal with marketing. Plus, maybe I don't need marketing because I'm busy. But then many businesses are cyclical. So you're really super busy. You don't have time to do any marketing. And then you close all the deals, of course, and you're left with a blank slate. You come in and say, well, okay, that was great. I was really busy, and now I don't have anything in the pipeline. So the real challenge is to keep a full pipeline at all times, so that so that you don't have these peaks and troughs. So you're never super busy and then nothing's going on. So you have a constant flow of business. So you should think about marketing really as an integral part of your business. And it's something that's really very important. Of course, I'm biased saying that, but I really think that's a key factor. But there are, of course, the tried and true ways of doing it in real estate. There are the signs. There are the email blasts. There are regular snail mail, brochures, all sorts of things. But I'd say really the greatest opportunity and probably uh, underexplored opportunity for many people who've been in a business for a while, in other words, and not just getting into it, is to get into social media, both organic social media, meaning that you're not paying for it, and advertising via social media, meaning that you are paying for it. And so you should expand your marketing horizons, basically, and get into that, and then figure out what works and what doesn't work for you, and then put most of your time and money into what's working for you, of course. But don't, if you find that, say, social media, Google ads all of a sudden are great, don't just forget about the signs and the things that have worked for you in the past. Continue doing those too. Maybe bring someone else in to do those cold calls, because maybe your time is better spent focusing on the social media marketing, and you can sort of offload that traditional marketing onto someone else on your team.
Very good. And so when you talk about social media, do you think that there's one best platform for marketing commercial real estate, or do they need to sort of play around a little?
I mean, I think you need to play around a bit. There are those social media channels that are specific to the industry, and every industry has them: trade magazines and publications and quantum listing, of course, and whatever is specific to your business. You want to make sure that people find out about you there, because that audience is your audience. But in terms of social media that everybody's reading these days, of course, there's LinkedIn, which I think is for commercial real estate extremely effective, because that's really a commercial marketplace. People aren't going there and by and large posting pictures of their pets and cats and other things. They're going there for business by and large. And so if you want to reach people there in their professional capacities, it's a great place to reach them. Plus, you can also, through the tools that LinkedIn makes available to you, you can actually go in and conduct searches and find out your target audience, and maybe even put together or have someone put together a database for you of people on LinkedIn who meet the demographic that you're looking for. So, say you have a medical property that you're leasing. Maybe you want to go into LinkedIn and you can very easily put together a list of internists in your area and put together this database. There are other tools you can use to put together to actually find out what their emails are, and maybe then you put together an email blast and send out to those that list of people. So that's basically combining the traditional email that you probably have been using with research on LinkedIn. You can also, these days, you can write blog posts directly on LinkedIn. I found that actually is pretty effective. If you're doing blog posts, you should definitely think about posting them on LinkedIn in addition to putting them on your website, or sometimes even instead of putting them on your website. The advantage is on LinkedIn, all sorts of people are going to have an opportunity to look at it. They'll come upon it. Maybe it'll be recommended to them. It'll be, your contacts will see it. Whereas if it's just on your website, and probably, unless been doing this for a long time, your website is not highly trafficked by people who are just browsing around looking for, they realize they need a new office or they need a new store. They have to find you there first. But if it's on LinkedIn, they may run into you. And you can also purchase ads on LinkedIn. And one of the advantages increasingly to LinkedIn, we'll get to Facebook in a second, is that, excuse me, that is a spam call, by the way, and you never want to accept those. And unfortunately, increasingly, it's a problem. But anyway, as I was saying, you can increasingly target your audience, that who you want to reach on these social media advertising platforms. So if you want to reach physicians, for example, or office managers, or people who own jewelry businesses, or whatever it might be, you can really find those people. And by and large, you're paying for people who are clicking on your ads, not viewing your ads, but actually clicking on them to get to wherever you're sending them, probably your website. So it's really a great way to, and I should just interrupt myself for a second. It might be expensive because you're going to be doing research and looking for keywords so that your ads will pop up when people are doing relevant searches, like for medical real estate. You want your ad to show up there. It might be expensive, but again, you're only paying when people are clicking on that link. And if someone's clicking on that link, the chances are pretty good that they're looking for medical real estate. So those are the people that you want. And if you figure out through other channels what you're spending to generate a lead, it's probably very cost effective to generate leads through social media advertising. I'll just quickly cover LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram. Those are Facebook in particular. People are probably used to using it for their social um, vacation photos and other things like that. But increasingly, it's being used by business. You can actually start a page for your business on it also, in addition to your website. And again, you can also really target ads probably even better on Facebook than you can on LinkedIn. And it's worth spending some time just experimenting to see what works on that. And Instagram is actually owned by Facebook, slightly different dynamics, but increasingly used by businesses these days. Should also add, the more that you are have a presence on these social media platforms, the greater will be your presence on Google search. So when people are searching for commercial real estate firms in Westchester County, where we are now, if you're active on social media, if you're putting out a lot of content through various different channels, the odds are greater that your firm will appear near the top of the search, which is your ultimate goal. If you're if you're anywhere other than the first page on a Google search, it's like the graveyard. No one's going to see it. It really needs to be at the top of the first page, and it's worth doing anything, including spending money, to try to get there. So if you start a Facebook page, you create a LinkedIn page for your business, which you can also do, and that is free. The more things you have there, the more opportunity there is for Google to rank you higher in search, because they'll see you're very active, they'll see you're constantly putting out new content, and they like that. So and then fortunately, unfortunately, if you're advertising, there's supposed to be a disconnect between advertising and on Google and where you place on their organic or non-paid search, but it's a little, it's not church and state exactly. So,
well, if I can give a short plug for one of Quantum Listings' features here, and this is something that we really encourage our users to do. There are sharing buttons on each of your listings and also on your profile page, and we make it very easy for you to search an individual listing, or if you share your profile, then it will share all of your listings to Facebook or LinkedIn and Twitter. And I think we're going to be adding Instagram soon. We had Google Plus, but Google terminated Google Plus.
well, because nobody was using.
Well, I did, but I guess I was the
you
only one.
You were the only one.
So and nobody used it probably means only like 50 million people instead of a billion people were using it. So so I think Gordon's right, and it is valuable for you to share this information, and we make it really easy for you. All right, commercial over.
Great. Well, also, I'd add it's worth your time to learn how to do some of the work that's very simple. So sharing doing things that, if you find something that you like, and it's can be daunting if you've not done it before, but it's really quite easy once you get into the swing of things. And in terms of learning how, you can ask your kids. Is one way to do it. Number two, if they're operating at too advanced a level for you on social media, which may well be the case, just you can just Google something and ask the question there. So, how do I add something to Instagram? And you'll get short tutorials on videos I can show you. You'll get short explanations. So it's pretty easy if you don't know. Just ask the question type it into Google. That's increasingly what people are doing. They're not just typing subjects, or typing complete questions, and it'll answer your question.
Yeah. So how important is it to not just post things on social media, but to interact with your colleagues and peers and potential customers uh, on social media, where you have a give and take and you're liking and commenting and things like that?
Right. So it's important to use the channels in a way. They're called social media, and it's social for a reason, because I've had clients before who would just use Twitter, saying we forgot to talk about Twitter, but I don't use Twitter that much because it's sort of, I think these days it's kind of like a cesspool. It's just a lot of junk is on it. I still use it because you never know when people will see it, but I put less emphasis on it. So I had a client, for example, who would just put their press releases out on Twitter, and no one would see them, and it would just sort of go into the ether. Uh, that's not what it's meant for. It's meant to try to engage with people. So what you can do on the social media platforms is, and I do this, for example. So once someone signs up for an event that I'm doing, I will. Oh, that's not here. I will go back into into LinkedIn, for example, and try to connect with the person. I'll just try to send a link to them and say thanks for signing up for the event. Look forward to seeing you there. Do you have any questions that we can answer in advance? So I try to make a personal connection, in my case, with people coming to the events. And you can do the same thing with people who are signing up to join a page that you might have on Facebook. You can ask a question, or you can do a poll. You can put a poll up there, which I know Quantum Listing does, about things not even just related to real estate. Just things that you might have a question about. And that's a good way to engage people. You can also, and this is more the sort of 2.0 version, you can start to aggregate email addresses on these social media platforms by offering a premium of some sort if people sign up. And by sign up, I mean provide their name and company and email address. And maybe if they do that, you send them a white paper, you send them a certificate for, gift certificate for whatever it might be. You send them swag that you might have, and David's waving his custom-made Quantum Listing eyeglass cleaners, which I have many of, actually, and they're quite useful.
Send me your email address or your snail mail address, and I'll send you one. I promise.
So they're good. They're good quality, and they last a while. So something like that enables you to capture information, data about people, and it's all about data these days. Data's gotten a fairly bad name because of privacy reasons, but it can also be used for the greater good, or your good anyway. So you can find out who's responding to there are all sorts of tools to see who's opening your emails, who's responding to them, who's following the links. And that way you can connect with people who are making social media connections to you.
Excellent. Do you have a favorite trick on LinkedIn?
Oh, so I'm supposed to tell the secrets here?
Just one secret, only one secret.
All right, I will give you a great, and there are a number of these resources to use. A great resource is, so as if many of you probably use LinkedIn, you know that for the most part, you cannot get someone's um, email address off of LinkedIn. It's just you have to send them a message through uh, LinkedIn, and they have different levels of service. Sometimes it's free. Usually, it's not free. You need to pay for a premium level of service. But there are tools that you can use to find people's email addresses just by clicking uh, on an extension in your, I use Chrome, on your toolbar. One of them is a company called getemail.io, and another one is called Rocket Reach. And both of those companies, through the miracle of science and data, enable you to uh, sign up for those services and embed a button on your toolbar so that when someone's profile comes up on LinkedIn, you can hit the button and their email address will pop up. And I'd say it's accurate about 50% of the, maybe a little bit more than 50% of the time, but it gets you going in the right direction. And I get, tons of email addresses that way, or, certainly if you're looking at a large company, I don't know if many of you are looking for people at larger companies, but all you need is one person's name at that company and you have found the template, and then you can go to town and reach everybody at the company. So that's kind of the secret sauce that I use to put together these databases that we put together for ourselves and also for clients.
When you're sending out an email blast, is there a metric for what a successful email blast is?
So yeah, so what you want to, I'd say the average open, and that's sort of the metric that who's opening your email is sort of the initial metric, is about 13%, 13 to 17%, 11 to 17% who are opening a cold email. What I've, and that's through a service like a constant contact, or a company I use and David uses called Robly, robly.com. There are other ones out there too. But what I found is that number one, even if it's not spam, and assumedly you're not sending spam, but you're sending a bulk email out to a group that's opted in, people want to hear from you. But there are a couple things going on. At a lot of companies, there are filters that will stop emails coming through and tag it as spam or garbage, just because they see that it's coming, they're able to see that it's coming from a service like Constant Contact. And they just assume that anyone who's receiving a bulk email doesn't want it. So it'll just send it to your spam file or block it entirely. And so that really cuts down on your success rate of being able to reach people. What I do to avoid that is, and it's much, much more time consuming, is I send out emails to individually to every single person on my list. And that could be like 1,000 emails or 100 or whatever it might be. And there are, and often I'm maybe sometimes, depending on the number, I'm slightly customizing each one. Sometimes I'm just cut and pasting pretty much the same email, although I do try to type in the person's name, dear John, and just so that it doesn't, when they open it, there is a little bit of personalization there. It's even better if you can put a sentence or half sentence saying something about them personally. And there are companies like HubSpot is a company that I use that enables you, excuse me, to create templates, and with a stroke of a key, the whole email will just pop up once you've entered in the new address. So you put in the new address by hand, you hit the key, and your whole email pops up, and then you send it. So that's one of the services that's offered by HubSpot. But still, it is time consuming because you do need to enter in by hand all of the email addresses. You're not just submitting a list like you do to Constant Contact, and in 5 minutes you have a new email going out. But if you have it takes you 5 minutes to send out an email that no one reads, or 13% of the people you're sending it to reads, is that worthwhile, or is it actually worthwhile to create a semi-personalized email? And I get open rates like 45% when I send it out personally from my own account.
Huh?
So that's a significant difference. I've noticed this really, really significant difference when I reach out personally to people, and also it's coming from me, and it avoids all the spam filters on the other side. I would say that one thing you do need to be careful about is whether you're sending out a personal email or sending out one of these bulk emails. You need to be aware of the CAN-SPAM Act, which is federal legislation law that says if you're sending out something that is advertising, it needs to basically be marked somewhere, and it could be in the signature line that people receiving it that this is a commercial announcement, and that they can unsubscribe from your list by contacting you or however you do it. Um, you know, your businesses aren't probably so large that it would be a problem. You're not sending out hundreds of thousands of emails, but it's just a good idea to be in compliance with the laws that do that. Um, Another thing to be aware of is that your subject line for your um, emails should really be something that catches people's eyes. I mean, it's like saying commercial real estate in your area is guaranteed that you probably wouldn't even open that. I mean, it's just it's really got to be something that um, says that there's some sizzle to that. It's your one opportunity to the second that you have that people will look at the subject and say make that decision that they're going to click on it or they're going to avoid it. So, is there something that can sizzle? And these days you can actually add emojis to your subject lines, dollar signs or, whatever it might be that you want to add that might attract some attention. What I've also been doing recently is I've been putting the person's first name in the subject line and then saying something like, and they are, as I said, they are personally sent. So I'll say something like, Steve, comma, a personal invite to whatever event that I'm advertising. And I think that, and I've noticed a difference in the open rates just by that. So people know that it's not being auto generated. And then actually even more so when people open it, I'll start off with a sentence like, yes, I actually did hit the send key myself on this email, because I actually did. So they get some sense that I'm not sending something out to thousands of people, that I've actually devoted some thought to who I'm sending the emails out to, so that, if I'm sending something to a doctor, she can be pretty certain that I'm not sending something about a retail space. I don't want to waste people's time, and I want people to get used to getting emails from me, hopefully, and to see them that when they see them, to have them think that it's something useful that's going to help them in some way, not that I'm just trying to randomly, reach as many people as possible.
Are there? Do you have any examples of sort of mass emailer types that you think do a really good job?
Mass emailers that do a really good job.
I have one.
Okay, yes, you give. Maybe
one.
that'll
And
make me think of one.
Morning Brew. Have you ever seen Morning Brew? I learned about it from my son Ben, and it's a morning email newsletter, and they do a great job with catchy headlines. Their content is quite excellent. They have like half a dozen or so articles in it, or links to articles, and they do a great job even with that. Is just like doing things that are attention grabbing, that aren't sort of banal. It sort of makes it more interesting, and gives you more of an impulse to click through when you see better headlines and better content in there. So morningbrew.com, I believe, is their the email address, the website address rather, where you can sign up for that newsletter. I know that my team and I have been studying them and trying to learn as much from them as we can.
I'd say another along those lines. Another good one is the skim.com,
Mhm.
and it's the SKIMM. And it's a company that's doing amazingly well. It was started by two, I think, former producers at NBC or associate producers, two women, who created basically a news email that's uh, directed basically towards women, and they have lots of great content in there, and also very catchy uh, headlines and subject lines, so that you want to open it and actually look forward to getting it every uh, day. So that's another one. I'm sort of I'll try to think more as we go on about catchy or retailers or people in business, because both of us mentioned media companies. I think most do a lousy job of it. I get something from the Banana Republic like 8 times a day, and actually, I don't know why it took me so long, but I finally unsubscribed to it because it would just say like Banana Republic, great corduroys or something like that, and you know,
And you haven't worn corduroy since the 80s?
this is. Well, yeah, that, but but if the next day it'll be great scarves or so, whatever. I'm just not. I don't even know what it says anymore. To be
You're not
honest.
buying what they're selling, is what I'm hearing.
So yeah, so they're just I kind of know where to go to get a scarf. It's not really drawing me into the site.
I know where to go. The rack in my mudroom. Um, so let's one last question from me on email, and then we may pivot. Uh, and also, if you folks in your offices have any questions, feel free to chime in or put them in the chat. Uh, so, do you find that there are particularly better times of day and days of the week to send out emails?
Um, I'm not sure. There's studies about this. There are studies about it, but I've found that it sort of varies, and I sometimes go contrary to the popular wisdom. So I used to think that I wouldn't send anything out during the weekends, and I'm still a little biased against that. But then I have sent things out during the weekends just to experiment, and the response has been pretty good. I've found that people will open things sometimes during the weekend that they might not open during the week because they're getting fewer things. So they might give something a shot, and that, and then yeah. So I try to send things out. Not I do try not to send things out Friday afternoons or Fridays at all if I can avoid it, because I think people are just trying to get out, of the office. So that's one rule that I have by and large. Um, but I think you need to experiment. Just and one thing. So some of these email, if you're using an email service like I am, Robley, and I've mentioned their name a couple times. I don't actually. It's a pure. I'm not being paid or anything. But if they want to, they know how to reach me. They have my email address. Um, but they've started using artificial intelligence and other things. So when I send something out through them, over time they'll learn the the program algorithm will learn when people are most likely to open their emails, so that it will actually deliver emails to individual. Sorry about that. I'm going to shut it off. Email boxes um, when people are most likely to open them. And there's another feature that they have that it will, if the email is unopened after 2 days, it'll send it again. So that way, if you are sending it later in the week and someone's out of the office or away, you can arrange for them to send it Monday morning. So that's again a way to do it. Um,
I use those features myself.
so they're good. I found that they
Yeah,
work pretty well.
they do, and you definitely get a higher open rate with uh, that second email going in. I think it's pretty effective. Um, all right, so and I put Robley's email address in the, or not email address, their website in the chat for anybody who needs
Yeah,
that.
you should put my website
Well,
in there
we'll
too.
get there. We're gonna
Okay,
get
all
there.
right.
So let's pivot, if we can, to advertising on Google or Bing or Yahoo. How do you feel about that, and what should people do to get started with that if you recommend that?
So I would say what's Bing, first of all. So that's off the table. I mean, like you said, there are people who read it, like maybe it's like 10 million as opposed to 10 billion, but or whatever. But still, if you've got a limited number of hours in the day, so I would just sort of put that one aside. Um, I would say that so advertising is important on those channels because um, when you advertise, your ads, your entries will come up. Let's take Google first. Your ads will come up whether or not you are organically located on the front page. So if your firm isn't coming up for uh, medical office space, if you put in an ad, you can still appear on the front page, the first page of a Google search, and you'll see those ads at the top and then on the sides. So you want to do that, and especially what I do. We like people to be there organically, also because uh, I always look at those first because I think that there's some merit to people actually um, shows that they're sort of paying attention, that they pay attention to details. If they're aiming for those organic spots on Google. But there may, if you're just starting this process, it's going to be a while. It could take a year, in a crowded space like real estate, commercial real estate, for you to start really moving to the top. And in the meantime, you want to be on that front page. So I would start with advertising, and then maybe as you start to gain traction, you can shift your advertising dollars away from that when you start to appear organically, or maybe you want to keep it there too. But um, the placement of advertising and the research on advertising is dependent on keywords, meaning what words and phrases people are typing in to find um, businesses like you and the products and services that they're looking for. And that can actually be a very time consuming process, finding out what the keywords are, how much you should spend, how much you should, and it's a bidding process, how much you should bid to get great placement. So that's something that you might, if you want to do that, it's probably what you can teach yourself. But that's something, unlike posting content or doing a blog, takes some orientation for. So that's one that you might want to hire a firm, at least at the start, to get you started doing that, or someone just to teach you how to do it. Because that's one thing that if you type that into Google, I will tell you that that does get very confusing to teach yourself how to do, and it will take you away from your core business. So you might want to hire a firm to get you started uh, in that process because there are a lot of considerations. And then also you want to find out what your competitors are doing, what words they're using. So it's a long process. If you're running ads on Facebook, that's also something you might want to hire a firm to do, although that's a little bit easier to do yourself. And there is good instruction. They do walk you nicely through the process uh, on Facebook ads, so you can find out where to how to do it a little bit. You might not get it totally right the first few times, but it's a lot easier than Google. And same with LinkedIn. LinkedIn will walk you through the process, and you can teach yourself about it a little bit. So that's worthwhile.
Mm-hmm. Um, is there any advice you can give on how to budget for this type of advertising?
Um, well, it really is going to vary from market to market. And I'm not that familiar with how much things are cost for uh, commercial real estate advertising on Google, say. Um, but I will tell you, for example, in a and I do know it's a competitive area, so it will cost you. Um, A very, very competitive area, for example, is our plaintiffs' lawyers on Google. And some of those words, like asbestos or mesothelioma, can cost upwards of $40 per click, which means that every time someone clicks on one of those ads, they they're being charged $40 per click. But that's a cost reward ratio. I mean, a client in one of those areas can yield hundreds of thousands of dollars or more. So it's something that you might want to devote many thousands of dollars to. Um, I'd say you want to get your foot in slowly and ramp up. So maybe experiment with $50 a day or $200 a week to get started, $100 a week. You do need to have a certain critical mass to start getting any traction at all, so you can start seeing some results. And then it's one of these things also that you can cut off at any time. So you're not signing a contract for any period of time. You can get out of it, at the click of a button if you change your mind. So again, I don't. It depends how many ads you want to run, what the costs of the auctions are, um, but they make it pretty easy to set a budget, and so you won't. In other words, you won't say, okay, I'm going to try it, and then all of a sudden you get a bill for like $5,000. You can really easily, and it's quite clear, cap it at a certain amount.
Yeah, I think that a lot of the like CoStar and LoopNet, one of the reasons why they are as expensive as they are is that there's a huge amount of your fee that you're sending them that is going toward advertising, in addition to the researchers and uh, corporate jets and things like that. We at Quantum Listing are about to roll out a feature which will hopefully make it easier for our users to uh, advertise on Google, and that and really easy for our users. And it is a Google cost per click advertising service. So you'll be able to pick the listings that you want to advertise on Google, or you can choose all of your listings, and then you'll also be able to set your budget. I think we have give you the choice of $50, $100, or $200 uh, to spend on your cost per click or CPC advertising, and we think that will be a great new feature because it shouldn't be a one size fits all type of thing. Different people have different budgets. If you're marketing a 1,000-foot store in Duluth, Minnesota, your budget for advertising isn't really going to be the same as if you're advertising a 1,000 square foot store on Madison Avenue in Manhattan, because the rents are, different by like a factor of 100. So, uh, you know, the fact that you'll have this kind of freedom of choice and be able to do what's appropriate for you and for your market and your listings, I think is going to be a real plus for our customers.
Yeah, well, that sounds like a great system and easy for people to get into without having to get bogged down in all the learning curve of trying to figure it out for themselves.
Yeah, no, we're hoping, and again, this keep an eye on your email. This should be rolling out in the next week or so. So hopefully by the end of April, you'll be able to avail yourself of this type of service. Um, so, what have we missed, Gordon? What do you think that is going to resonate with our real estate brokers and marketers out there?
I would say one thing that's important is to make sure that all of your That your website is obviously incredibly important, and it's how people judge you. It's how people, it's your first, they send a shampoo commercial. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. And even if you're not actively using that to sell things or to list things, or it is what people are, it's the first thing they're checking out, basically. When they hear about you, they're just going to say, oh, well, they'll get a sense of what you're like. And if it's a current site and it's fast and it's well made and professional, they'll see you as a professional who really cares about their appearance and how and the impression that they make. If it's some sort of crappy site and it seems really out of date and you haven't kept it uh, timely, then people will notice and they will, fairly or not, judge you accordingly. It doesn't matter that you haven't had time to update your blog if you have a blog since the 4th of July. People don't look at that as a sign. It's like, well, you're super successful and super busy that you just haven't gotten around to it. They look at it as a sign that you don't care about that you just let it go. Um, and so I always tell people, if you're going to do a blog, you need to really devote yourself to it or hire someone to do it. Or it's better not to have a blog than it is to have a blog that the last entry is from a year ago. I mean, I see that myself when I'm shopping for, whatever I'm shopping for. If it's not up to date, it's just, I get a certain impression of the company. And so and that really goes for all the advertising and marketing that you're doing. It's important to keep it front of mind because that's your calling card these days. It's how people make their impression about which broker they're going to go with, which firm they're going to use. How people, it's like, when you pass by a house, is the lawn mowed, is it painted, the same thing. That's your website.
Yeah.
So
And I would say, even if you don't have a website, treat LinkedIn the same way you would treat that website. You really have to keep it fresh and accurate and show people that you are care. I mean, LinkedIn, according to my analysis, is really the largest commercial real estate network on the planet. It's got over 1 million United States users that list commercial real estate in some capacity on their LinkedIn profiles. So 1 million people is a pretty darn big market, and that probably doesn't even include all the potential tenants that we're servicing. Uh, so because pretty much anybody is a potential tenant. Uh, so spend the time to keep that fresh also.
yeah, I mean, up to date and up to speed, and then it's also worth your time uh, trying to engage people and find contacts that are relevant through LinkedIn, because that also shows that you're paying attention to details. Sometimes you'll see these LinkedIn profiles that it doesn't have a picture, that it's very sparse, and that just says that that's basically someone registered for it and then really didn't use it. If it's one of those things, and I think everybody should use LinkedIn these days because it is sort of the international business directory these days. So if you don't have a good LinkedIn site, it's worth spending the time to make it. And it's all about your background. So you don't have to do any research or anything. You already know all the details. So it's worth spending some time making a solid profile and keeping it updated.
Yeah. So, and do people outsource the building of their LinkedIn profiles, or does everybody just do it themselves?
No, you can outsource. You can. I mean, people definitely do who are busy outsource it, and it's a fairly small job to do it. But you do if you're going to do it, and you don't have the time to do a good job, you want someone else to do it for you. I'd say the key thing is to have a picture there of yourself, and ideally, not one with you like wearing a lampshade and Hawaiian lei or something like that. It should look somewhat respectable. It's not like your profile picture on Facebook. let's say.
Yeah. So keep the two realms somewhat separate, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, LinkedIn's really pretty much for business. And in fact, I've seen people post other things and like political opinions and things like that on LinkedIn, and they'll get flamed pretty much. People will say that this isn't the right purpose for that this platform, and it's true. It's really to uh, keep things on a professional level, and there are other platforms where you can have fun or speak your other opinions that aren't business related.
Unless you're James Carville, keep your political opinions off LinkedIn. Is that what I'm hearing?
And I would recommend that.
Very good. So we are just about out of time, Gordon. So uh, tell our listeners how they can get in touch with you, and uh, you can, uh, I guess, social
Okay.
media
Yeah,
and
social media. Well, I'll give you my my website is www.gothammediastrategies.com. Strategies plural. Um, and my email, you can reach me at gplatt at gothammediastrategies.com. And happy to answer any questions or follow up in any way. I'm on Twitter at Gotham Media, and I'm on uh, Facebook if you want to reach me there. The site that I'm recommending that people reach out to me on for business on um, Facebook is Gotham Venture Monitor. So that's a little different. Where it's a new service that we're starting specifically for investors, but we're doing all sorts of things for entrepreneurs and investors. So it's Gotham Venture Monitor.
all right. And can you just let everybody know like the scope of services that Gotham Media offers?
So we really do everything. We do everything from uh, creating ads and following them and helping you out on the Google side or Facebook side. So as I was describing, it'll be difficult for people to get into that and up to speed quickly. We will do that for you and handle everything. And we'll walk you through it, uh, but we'll do all the research on keywords, telling you what your budget, a recommended budget should be, and we'll run it day to day. And we can, week to week or even day to day, show you what the results are. How many people are connecting. So that's it. The good thing about ads is you really see your return on investment. So you'll see that. Then we do a lot of content production. So we'll do your blog if you don't have the time to do it and want to have one. We'll help you with your website. We'll help you with public relations if you want that. So it's really the whole range of things that are related to marketing. We'll help you come up with a strategy for emails, and even there are clients that we do their emails for them. I mean, they are involved in the process, of course, but if they don't really know the best way to do it, and then behind all this is competitive analysis. So if you really want to see what your competitors are doing, and that's really the basis of when we're creating a strategy for someone. The first thing we want to see is what their competitors are doing and what we can do better or differently so that from the get go, our clients really have a competitive advantage in their field.
Excellent. All right. So our time is just about up. If anybody has a question, please feel free to speak up or post it here in the chat. I am going to end our recording, and Gordon and I will stick around for a few minutes to chat with you if
Yep,
if you want to
happy to
talk.
do it.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, and thank you, Gordon, and thank you, Andres and Julia, for your help today in preparing. And thank you to all of our listeners and viewers now online or in the future. Thanks again.